Our next guest may be known as one of the nation's top producing sales brokers in commercial real estate. He's done over $4.7 billion in sales personally. He may be known as a father, an educator, a philanthropist. He's very involved with the Boys and Girls Club and various other nonprofits. But here on the Introduction Podcast, as you know, we like to dive a little deeper than the surface. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you to Tony Azzi. Like the podcasting thing, it's a great outlet because, you know, like I said, let's say you're doing business with, you know, a lot of high net worth people, this, that, and the other. What better way for them to understand you than you to sit down and have, you know, long form conversation.
Take the time to watch it, do you think, a lot of people?
I think so.
Okay.
It's so saturated, but you can listen to it audio, you can listen to a video.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And also
I do you too, because I'm fascinating with a lot of the program they do with different politicians, whatever, to see what's perspective. You know, yours will be probably good for a student from different universities also, thinking about going into a real estate career. It depends who you're interviewing, like with Fred, me, if you're doing other people, different backgrounds. So it's different. All right.
Yeah, I agree. So we're
You're not going to make a lot of noise, right? No, I'm just asking.
It'll be okay. Because I have
fine?
Yeah, so
Okay.
for this, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
And right there.
This is good. All right.
So, but we're already going, so we're starting.
Okay.
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying. The ability for you to sit down, if you're a student, if you're an investor, whatever, to get to know whoever you're doing business with, whoever you want to learn from, on kind of the long form freedom conversation is, I think, a huge tool that people are using now. Like, I'm surprised that, you know, you don't see more businesses operating this way.
It's interesting you say this, because I switched from reading books because of the limited amount of time I have to Audible. So now I find myself doing probably 2 books a month compared to before struggling to do 2 books a year. Yes, I do miss probably 20% of the material that I'm listening to compared to reading the book.
Yeah.
But still, it's 80% is better than 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, you actually got me into Blinkist.
I did Blinkits at the beginning, and I was zooming through a lot of books. Then I realized there are certain books where I need to go more in depth to understand what's going on. So I switched back to Audible.
Yeah.
So if it's something not interests me that much, I want to learn, I go to Blinkist, but Audible gives me the whole perspective of things. Yeah.
I understand that. So what I usually like to do, after we finish up, I'll do an introduction and throw it at the beginning. But usually what I like to do is I like to start off with the business portion. And, you know, usually I'll interview entrepreneurs, business people, people with an offering or a product or a service that they're trying to provide to people. And a lot of times I find myself wanting to work with a service provider, whatever it may be, who I relate to, understand, and know that they're, you know, at least a decent person behind whatever they're providing. And me knowing you and working with you for as long as I did, I got to know you, amazing person, philanthropist, all these other things. So I figured it would be a perfect way for you to kind of spread the message about who you are and the business that you do and how you've been able to be so successful. So you've been at Marcus & Millichap for 35-ish years.
Going on 37.
I'm
37. Scared to say it.
Well, I mean, look, you got a little gray, but that's it. That's fine.
Yeah, that will do it to you.
Oh my gosh. Brokerage, I think, pushed my hairline back like 3 inches. So and I only been doing it for 5 years.
So you can imagine after 37, you have no feeling anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So what got you started in brokerage in the first place? Because at this point, you've already done, what, $15-16 billion worth of sales, something like that.
Right.
You know, you've gotten countless awards at Marcus & Millichap. You've been the top producing agent for private equity in the multifamily sector for I don't know how many years, and it's usually consecutive. So what gets you started in brokerage in the first place, and how do you become kind of the powerhouse that you did?
What started me in the first place, as you know, probably in my background, I graduated with an accounting degree. And I was interviewed at that time by the Big Eight, which now the Big Four accounting firm. And Touche Ross International hired me to be an international auditor, to be able to travel between the Europe and the Middle East and do audit. And they needed someone who spoke 3 languages. So I remember vividly when it came down, I accepted the job. When it came down to salary, they said it's $24,000 a year. So I was talking to my brother. I said, he was in Dubai at that time. Hey, Paul, I got a job. They're going to pay me $24,000 a year. He said, are you kidding me? What are you going to do with $24,000 a year living in a suitcase? So the idea of traveling first intrigued me. You know, you're going to meet a lot of people. And then literally that week we were invited by one of the girl who graduated with us to her home for a luncheon, graduation luncheon. And her father, very successful businessman, happened to walk in. And I had a drink with him. And I asked him, I said, if you were a kid my age, just graduated from school, what would you do? He said, I'll go into real estate. I said, can we have lunch tomorrow? So the next day, him and I, we had lunch. And that was triggered the change of my career from going into accounting to going into real estate. And that was the beginning of real estate.
That's, you know, what's funny is that's kind of similar to how I met you. Fred, I was at their house for Shabbat for one weekend, and you and Fred go way back. You guys are good friends, business partners, this, that, and the other. And I was at their house for Shabbat, and he goes, you know, I had just graduated college. He goes, what do you want to do like with your life? And I was like, man, I just want to be able to take care of my kids one day. That's like the only thing that I want to do. That's all I care about. He goes, okay, I'll see you at the gym Monday morning at 5 a.m. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck? Like, how does this, you know, it's so random. So long story short, I show up to the gym. I meet you, Jennifer. You guys have a really cool group of people. Ron was there.
Right.
And you've all done business together. You've grown together in your perspective, you know, places, you know, of business pretty much. You guys run together 5 miles, 5 a.m. So I showed up and I was dying. I had 3 asthma attacks running with you guys. And at the end of that week, you and I kind of hit it off. And, you know, I know you'd spoken to Fred, and I ended up being able to have a interview with you, ended up getting the job.
Right.
At that point, I didn't even know that people could own apartment buildings. Like, I had grown up in an apartment building, literally had no idea.
Yeah.
So,
but it's always good, Chandler, when you really don't know the business you get in and you get trained, compare you hire someone who's been doing it for 15, 20 years or doing other businesses and they're set in their ways, and you try to change them a little, not change them, but try to integrate them into the business the way we do our business. It's much more difficult.
yeah.
So
Noticing, trust me, going out kind of on my own now, and I've taken so many of the business practices that I've learned from you at Marcus because it works so well. Like, being able to integrate it on my own, it's, you know, having that training process. And I see other people in the business that have a harder time either going out on their own or even, you know, in their respective teams, the way that they do business. I really appreciated the way that you taught us, the way that we do business.
oh, thank you. That makes me feel really good. And
No,
it's funny
seriously.
you say this. I have a fellow who worked with me years ago. And then he ended up going to Nigeria to work on a major development with his family. And every 6 months, he will text me. He said, thank you, Tony, for the training we got. I am #1 guy in Nigeria now in sales. And I sold one of the biggest piece of land to the United States to build their embassy.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
so he said, without the training that I have gotten, even though he wasn't successful in my office, but he tried. But with the training that he has gotten, that built him up to be so successful in Nigeria.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised. integrity first. You
Oh, absolutely.
hammer that in.
Yeah.
And the way that we do business, it's from a very like methodical standpoint, which I think helps not only the clients but us make sure that they're being taken care of to the best of our ability. So I think it's rare in real
No,
estate.
you're right. Look, the business we're in is not a very difficult business, as you know. It's common sense, it's people's business, and most important is trust and being transparent and honest. So I happened to be a couple months ago on the board speaking at LMU, Loyola Marymount University, and there were a couple of professors, students in the crowd, parents, and we had a panel, and they asked, "What does it take to be successful in commercial real estate?" And everybody had their own answer, which I respect, but nobody really answered what it takes to be successful. And to me, I summarized it. I said, look, everybody can work hard if they want to work hard. Everybody can put the hours. But the most important part of success in our business, being transparent, honest, straightforward, say the bad before the good. And because the people we do business with, they're very sophisticated, they're very sharp, they know more than I do. So if when you deliver to them, they know when you're telling them the truth or not, and they know you're sincere, you're telling them what it is, and for them to make that decision. And that's very important to me in doing business, always straightforward, straight in the eye. This is what it is. You want it, great. You don't want it, I totally understand. And it has worked for me.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first came in, like doing the first couple deals, you would literally just say the exact truth, and like even if it was something that the person doesn't want to hear, you just pull the band-aid off and you're like, look, this is kind of what it is, and this is what you need to expect, and blah blah. And I'm saying like, I'd never seen a business person operate in so much honesty, just unabashed honesty. And I was kind of mind blown by it, because from an outsider's perspective, as someone who had just started at that point,
Right.
you think, oh, you're shooting yourself in the foot by being so honest. But in reality, obviously you've been in the business now 37 years and you're one of the best to do it. So clearly there's something to being honest. And I think it's helped me. I've had people call me after years and say, hey, I'm looking to sell my building, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's because of
Right.
that level of
Yeah.
honesty.
You rather have someone walk away from the deal day one, if when you're being honest and they make their own decision, than wasting so much time. One, they end up not doing the deal. Now you wasted probably 30, 60, 90 days of your time. That's number one. Number two, let's say they do the deal and they discover something you did not disclose and you weren't honest about, then it's a lawsuit.
Mm.
So it doesn't help anybody. It creates bad feeling among the business community. Your reputation is number one in what you do. Even though we live in a huge city, LA, but the city is very small.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Mm.
So your reputation is number one in the business. And whenever someone, you want them to say Chandler, oh yeah, great guy, honest, he knows what he's doing, instead of saying, oh no, he ripped me off on this deal, he did not disclose this.
Mm.
And to me, the only thing I have in this business is my time and my reputation, because anybody can be doing what I do.
Mm.
So I'm not more smarter than anybody else. It's just, I found a niche which I enjoy. I love people. And I would say probably 85% of my clients today are my friends.
Yeah.
So people I travel with, people we spend time together. So it's no longer the client relationship, client and Tony. It's really friendship.
Mm.
And that friendship was not built based on doing a deal. It's people find you warm, sincere. They want to associate with you. They want to be around you, and I want to be around them.
Mm.
And you get to a place in your career where you say, you know what? If someone you don't want to do business with, no disrespect, you can fire the client you don't want to do business with
Mm.
if they're not at the same level that you want to be in.
Yeah.
So
That's something I learned from you, really. It's to respect your time.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
all what I have in this business
Mm.
is my time. Anybody who's doing any service in sales, what do you have? It's your time.
Mm. Very true.
And, a lot of people don't think about time, but time, you can never get it back. The minute a minute goes by or an hour goes by, that minute or hour, it's never recaptured again. It's going in the garbage.
Mm.
So you want to maximize the value of your time and do what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. So let's kind of take it back. You'd mentioned before I got us on this tangent, um, you had graduated from LMU, you'd got your degree in accounting, and you had met your friend's dad, and he kind of introduced you to the idea of going into real estate.
Hmm.
So from that point, how do you find yourself as one of the most decorated brokers to work at Marcus and Millichap?
Whoa, that's a loaded
It
question.
is.
When I went into real estate, being young and thinking you're capable of doing whatever you want to do, I figured I'll open my own office, start selling residential. Little I knew, I mean, you need a lot of training. But I went on my own. I started my own office and sold residential in Marina del Rey on the peninsula.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was the beginning. And the very first condo I sold to a gentleman from New York named Tom Edwards, who became good friends. And I met him not selling real estate. When I was studying for my real estate license, I had to make some money to survive. I joined Sharp Copiers. I was selling copiers. And I walked in his office. I sold him a copier. And that led to our relationship, into me becoming friends with him and selling him his condo. But fast forward, this is back in the early 80s, mid 80s. He loved Lebanese food. I love to cook. And we were at his place, the one I sold him on Catch in Marina del Rey. I'm making food in the kitchen. One of his neighbors comes down and, we're talking. He came in complaining. He said, I just imported two brand new Mercedes Benz from Germany. At that time, it was the gray market. Probably you don't remember the gray market.
I wasn't around.
Yeah, the Deutsche Mark went down in the value to the dollar. So it was so cheap to import cars from Germany than buying them from here.
Mm.
Literally, it was like at 60 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
So he had imported two brand new, I think like 500 or 560 CL, the coupe. So he comes in, he said, I can't roll up the window. I said, what's the issue? He said, I don't know. And it's Saturday afternoon, everything is closed. So I looked at the car, I opened the fuse box, and I saw one of the fuse was popped. So I took it out, went back to the kitchen, put foil paper, put it in. I roll up this window. So he looks at me, he said, where are you from originally? I said, I'm from Lebanon. He said, you guys are geniuses, aren't you? I said, no, why common sense to fix a
Common
fuse.
sense and
Right.
foil.
So anyway, he said, what do you do for a living? I said, I sell residential real estate. He said, how would you like making $100,000 a year selling commercial real estate? My antenna went up. 100,000 at that time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I said, I'm all for it. So the next day he called, at that time, Harvey Green, who became the president of Marcus and Millichap. He was running the Encino office. He said, I have a guy I want you to meet with. So the next day on Monday, I called Harvey. I went, had lunch with him. And that led to 3-4 interviews before I got hired. And this is the beginning of my career. I mean, they send you to training. I remember the training was in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't have money to stay in Orange County at the hotel. I was commuting back and forth in traffic, attend training early in the morning all the way throughout the day, and come back the next day. And there were 8 of us in that class from the Encino office. Encino was very small office at that time, so they had to fire someone to give you a desk.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there is no room. So I walked in, they gave me a cube, and within 6 months, all the guys I was with in training were gone except one. It was me and him left. I said, holy cow. So it made you realize I have to stay here.
Yeah.
So I can't afford to leave. I have to make a living. Otherwise, I'll be homeless. So I worked really hard. I mean, I showed up to the office at 6 in the morning. I didn't leave till 8. Weekend, I was doing proposals, taking pictures. And it wasn't the digital world back then, 35 millimeter camera. You have to
Yeah.
develop the picture, typewriter. It was a totally different. Research was 3-ring binder. You go through the comps.
Mm.
But it was a fun time. It was very hard, very stressful. But I think what happened, literally working hard, being determined to succeed, not taking no for an answer. Uh, what made the difference is that extra push.
Mm.
Because a lot of people can run, but not everybody can do a marathon.
Yeah.
And the business we're in is a constant marathon that's going. So you have to pace yourself and keep going for a long term. Otherwise, a lot of competition will kill you.
Mm.
Yeah.
That was a loaded answer. There's so many pieces of your answer that, at least, I've had the pleasure of knowing you on a pretty personal level. Not only was I working with you, but we'd have our summer parties. We have close, both of our family friends are friends. And a lot of the things that you've mentioned are definitely staples, and you can see how you carry yourself in like day-to-day life, and it bleeds into your business very, very seamlessly. Does that happen over years of saying, hey, I want to be this type of business person, and then you develop into that type of person? Or were these always pieces of you and they just kind of fit into business pretty seamlessly?
Chandler, I don't think you change as an individual. You become more sophisticated, you become more knowledgeable, you gain more expertise. But who you are fundamentally, it's the base you were raised with, built with. So that honesty, that transparency, you don't acquire it later in life.
Mm.
It's something that you were born, family raised you with, the school you attended, your belief, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm.
Now, I happen to be gifted in a way. I love people. I'm very social. And I don't do it because of the business, but I really truly enjoy being around people, where to a level where sometimes it affects my relationship, where it's we need time for us, and I'm always involved with a lot of people.
Mm.
And now I'm learning how to carve more time at my age for us, not everybody involved.
Mm.
And it's very difficult. I have a very busy schedule, social schedule, where it goes 1 month in advance, not being able to book someone for
Yeah.
lunch or dinner. So in a way, it's very good. At the same time, it becomes stressful at some point.
Mm.
So I don't think honesty really is learned. It's something you grew up with it. It's embedded in you, and you really believe in it, and you respect other people.
Mm. I definitely want to get into that later on, and seeing how you transition, at this point in life, and what you're gearing up for going forward. But kind of, I wanted to touch on, you spoke a little bit about upbringing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe touch on your upbringing? Like, what was early life like you in Lebanon, and then what got you to LMU, and
Yeah, I mean, it's look, I grew up in a middle class family. My dad was a chef, which in the 60s he opened his own restaurant. He worked very, very hard, hardworking guy. I don't think he was the smartest businessman, but he was very hardworking guy and sincere, straightforward, honest. And probably what he installed in me at age 11, getting me to work, and it was tough work. I mean, in the summer it was dishwasher job, and in the winter hanging coats, in the vestiaire for people coming in. And the night went all the way till 4 in the morning, where I mean, I was working on the weekend where my friends are having fun. But what he did early on installed in us the value of hard work. Nothing comes easy. Then I went to private schools, Jesuit and Catholic schools. So I was French educated, obviously, like a lot of people in Lebanon. English was my third language. You take it on in the 6th grade, which we never thought, I never thought in my wildest dream I'll be living in the US. I said, that's probably a free hour for me, the English hour, you don't have really to pay attention
Yeah.
to it, right? And
little did you know.
yeah, little I knew, at that time. But anyway, so my mom was very religious. She went to church every day. Uh, she installed believing in God, and I'm not as religious. My mom was. To me, religion is I want to treat people the way I like to be treated, respect them, respect me, and
Mm.
that's my biggest religion.
Mm.
But so I grew up in a house, a lot of love from my mom. My mom was devoted to us 4 kids. My dad worked nonstop. He wasn't around as much because of his work. And when I graduated in Lebanon, the civil war was still going on, and my mom wanted me to get out of the country at any cost. I was supposed to be going to Paris. I was accepted at the what it's called HEC, Haute Études Commerciales, which is after you do your bac technique in Lebanon, 4 years of commerce, accounting.
Mm.
So then a friend of mine happened to be in Lebanon who already was in the US. He said, Tony, why don't you come to the US instead? So this is when I switched and I came to the United States. And first of all, I came to Kentucky, where he got me accepted at the university.
That was your first step?
First step,
Oh my
1979, September 1979. And I showed up here, and 2 weeks later, I said, Joe, I can't live in Kentucky. He said, oh, let's get in the car. We'll go to Florida. Probably we'll move. So we drove from Kentucky to Florida. And from Florida, we came back. I said, Joe, I'm going back to Beirut. He said, my parents didn't know I was coming back. So I was surprised them. My mom was shocked. So I spent one more year. I finished the school in Lebanon. And the following September, no, that summer, I met some guys at the beach house. They were going to see Santa Barbara.
Mm.
So I was telling him about my experience. He said, Tony, what the heck is wrong with you? You should have gone to California. It's the same weather. The climate is good. So sure enough, the same guy who I was with in Kentucky happened to be visiting his family. I told him I'm going to California. He said, do me a favor. Get your ticket to Kentucky. We'll go to Kentucky together. We'll get a U-Haul. I'll put all my furniture in, and you and I will drive across the country and come to California. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that
Yeah.
story either. What the heck? Started off in Kentucky. Yeah, you don't strike me as the Kentucky guy.
No.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty cool inception. And so from there, you were at LMU, and then we get to
Yeah, first when I came to California, obviously my English wasn't that great to be able to
because you
start
took that
college.
free hour.
So I went to a school downtown LA called Cambria English Institute, and they had 8 grade courses. It's 6 hours a day you attend over 8 months. So they give you an exam to see what level they want to put you in. So grammar, I was level 2, and vocabulary, I was level 4. So they said, okay, we'll compromise, we'll put you on level 3. So 5 months later, there is an exam you pass as a foreign student called the TOEFL exam to get accepted in college. So I passed the TOEFL exam, and I started applying for colleges at that point because I wasn't accepted here at college. I was in Kentucky. So I applied to, when I realized, any school I go to, you're a foreign student, you're going to pay tuition anyway. So I said, why go to public school? I go to private school since I'm paying anyway. So I applied to Pepperdine, Loyola Marymount, and USC. USC, I did not like the location at that time. It was really rough.
Mm.
Pepperdine was out of the way, being in Malibu, gorgeous, but out of the way. So, and Loyola was a little cheaper. I said, Loyola is the key. So, and this is what happened. I went to Loyola, and I finished accounting degree, and I graduated in 3 years because I was already behind. So I was taking summer courses, winter courses, 21, 22 units a semester to push it in order to graduate because I was already behind between the English school and transferring from Lebanon. So I did it in 3 years.
Mm. So when all this was going on, did you have an end goal or a vision in your mind of what you were, like your why? Could you envision why you were doing any of the schooling that you're doing, why you were pushing yourself to get out of Lebanon, further your education?
Well, the intention was never to stay here. Literally, I mean, the intention was I finished school, and I did. I finished school and I started selling my furniture to get myself ready to go back to Lebanon.
Mm.
And at the time, the civil war was still going on. It was really bad. And my mom said, "Why don't you buy some time? You know, do something. Stay in the U.S. now. You know, until the situation gets better." Which, knowing Lebanon, the situation never gets better; it gets worse.
Mm.
So, and this is how I started. My dad wasn't able to send me any more money to go to school. The Lebanese pound devaluated at the time from 1 to 8. It used to be $3 to $1. It went to 85.
Your recollection is crazy.
Well, yeah, because you were living that.
Yeah.
It's like, so I remember the phone call with my dad. He says, "Son, congratulations, you're on your own." It's like someone took a big bucket of ice and
Yeah.
dropped it on me. I remember it was vividly. I was in Marina del Rey, sitting outside when I got the call. I got the classified ad in the Los Angeles Times. I start going that afternoon down, and I see sharp copier looking for salesperson. Right? I circled it, made the call. They said, "Can you come in this afternoon?" Jumped in the shower, put my suit on. Within 2 hours, I was, in Culver City being interviewed. What was his name? Steve, the manager. I can't remember his last name. He said, "When do you want to start?" I said, "I'll start tomorrow. I need money." So they had a base of nothing, mediocre, but you make money on, on selling copiers. And selling copiers, it was probably the worst job I ever had. Selling copiers,
Mm.
they kick you out of the building, you enter from the back door, you're pushing the cart. So, but I made good money. I was the salesman of the month. You call, you go, you sell, and you made your money by selling the services of the copier, not just the
Mm.
copier itself. So, but I knew it was temporary. I just want to pay my rent, my expenses until I pass my exam for the real estate and get into real estate.
Wow. Okay. Was it a hard transition from, because you at that point you hadn't done a sales job, right?
Except the copier, yeah.
Except the copier.
Yeah.
Was it a hard transition from kind of going from, copying sales and into commercial real estate, or did you have kind of that same kind of training that allowed you to go?
Believe it or not, sometimes people have the ability to sell and they're born with it. They love the art of selling.
Mhm.
At the same time, what you learn that hard sell in a copier, it's very similar to anything else. It's sales is sales. You pick up the phone, you call, you set a meeting, you go to the meeting, you try to sell them a copier.
Mm.
Compared to in commercial real estate, I call, I set up a meeting to go sell their building.
Yeah.
So it's a similar concept. The only difference, you're selling different product.
Mm.
Yeah, probably we should turn this phone off.
That's a day in the life of Tony Azzi right there.
Right, exactly. So reality is, in a way, I think I'm gifted in sales. I don't want to say I'm smarter than others, but I'm just gifted in that area, and it just worked for me. And coincidentally, I got lucky where I fell into real estate,
Mm.
and that's how my career was launched.
Mm. I feel like the most successful people that I've ever spoken to are always pretty adamant on there's been a not an extreme level of luck, but a good push in terms of luck that helped them to excel, or at least use their skills to excel.
Speaking of luck, I always say to everyone, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Absolutely.
If I sit at home and do nothing, I'm gonna get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The more you are in front of people, the more people you meet, the more you network with people, letting them know what you do, the more successful you're gonna be.
I agree.
And so basically, it takes a big initiative of being in front as many people as you can in order to be successful in sales.
Sorry, I had the
It's
mic
working.
malfunction. There we go. I agree with you, and I mean, you see it every day. Like between you and Fred, seeing how you guys operate and the levels that you guys operate at, you work more than people that are less quote unquote successful. So it's like, there's obviously,
It's a demanding job.
uh-huh.
It's not, you cannot let your foot off the pedal.
Mm.
Everybody will pass you. And what we do is so competitive, and you have a lot of the younger people coming in. They have more energy. They have more time because they don't have family, they don't have kids. Their focus is only their business. The only advantage you have they don't have is the expertise and the knowledge you have acquired over the years and the network of people you have.
Mm.
So one thing compensates for the other. So what they have, the youth and the energy and everything else, you want to keep that having that energy, but they already have something else to compete with them. And so if you don't use your skills and what you have learned, then you're going to be left behind.
Mm. Mm.
And it's very simple.
Yeah. So, I think one thing that I'd like to ask, kind of from the lens of maybe some younger people that don't have, they don't have the same introduction to real estate. They're not in commercial real estate. They don't understand as many of the laws and the uses of commercial real estate. Do you think from your perspective, you could give some advice to people who are looking to potentially own real estate and free themselves up, with passive income and things like that? Like, how would you guide someone who's saying, hey, Tony, I want to buy some real estate, but I don't really know what I'm doing?
Look, owning apartment building or retail, especially apartment building, we all at one point or the other lived in an apartment. So you understand a little bit about the apartment world. My recommendation before you start buying, going cold, if this is the business you want to be in as an investor fully, not having other job, if you're not a passive investor, is get into the brokerage, do loans, get into anything is related to real estate at least for 5 years to really learn the business, and then start acquiring real estate. If you are a doctor, an attorney, a successful businessman, whatever you do, and you want to be a passive investor, find someone you trust who are professional in what they do and invest with them.
Mm.
That's my recommendation. Because today, running an apartment building is not what it used to be, where if you look in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was the mom and pop business. A lot of people bought one building, two building, operated them, and even they had like an owner user. They lived in one, rented the others.
Mm-hmm.
With the current situation, the laws changing, the business has gotten so sophisticated, it's hard for me to keep up with the changes on a daily basis between rent control, ULA, so a lot of the elderly people who got into the business, they can't anymore operate at this level. I find myself calling a lot of time my management company to ask them what's going on with this law, for example, which I used to know all of it before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming harder to operate unless you're really a professional real estate person. And this is how our industry has moved. I think in the late 90s, the institutional investor got into the apartment world, and that has changed the apartment building. So back in the days, we never spoken about cap rate with our client. Cap rate was for commercial real estate, not apartment building. They spoke GRM, price per door, price per foot, and cash flow. So that has changed completely. So cap rate plays a big role now in the apartment world. And a lot of people didn't know what a cap rate is,
Yeah.
unless they were in the commercial world or the institutional investors. So definitely the business has changed. And my recommendation, if this is not your business, find someone you trust and invest with them and be a passive partner. And if you want to get involved 100% in the business and be an operator, then go into the brokerage for 5 years, learn the business, then go on your own.
I see. I mean, that's great advice. You're essentially saying you need to get, hands on the ground experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to know it, I mean, this is what I recommend for my kids. Obviously, beside the brokerage, we own and operate a lot of real estate. And with my kids, you know, if they want to continue, I would want them to probably learn the brokerage business, learn the finance business, and the management business. Have them work like train a year or two here, year and two there, to learn it all before they start operating.
Mm.
Because you know, to get in and start operating right away a large portfolio is not feasible.
Yeah.
You really know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny that you say that. And you have two daughters, right? They're in college age. Do you have the thought that you'd like to, for lack of a better word, build on like family legacy? Because your family is really tight knit, right? Like even your sister said that you guys are doing big family dinner here tonight. You cook a lot. Everybody comes over.
Right.
You host. Your family does business together, be it management, construction, this, that, and the other. What's the point of keeping family so close, tied to business, when you have people that say, hey, don't mix family and business? And do you want your daughters to continue that legacy and build on the family business going forward?
Well, I'm going to answer it in so many different ways because there's a lot of segment in this. Number one, with my kids. What I tell my kids, even though I'm selfish, I'd like them to continue the legacy and go into the business, but it's not realistic. So what I tell them is, I want you to do what you love doing. When you open your eyes in the morning, ready to go to work, you're anxious to go to work and you love what you do. Don't worry about the money, because money will come if you do things right. So if you really love what you do and you live for it, you're going to make money. You're going to be successful. So don't get into a business because daddy is doing the business. Don't get in the business because my uncle is the business and I can get in it easily. No, do what you love. That's number one advice to my kids. As far as family, I'm very much of a family man. I like family to stay together. I hold a lot of event, luncheon with the families, birthdays, whatever. At the end of the day, I mean, blood, you know, that's what's important. And keep in mind, when I moved to the US, I was alone for 7 years, no family around, and until my brother came and his wife. So it was lonely being alone. If anything happens to you, there's no one around, right? So family is very important, and I find it surprising when I see people fighting, brother fighting for money. They have lawsuits going on, and I see it in my business all the time. So Paul, my brother, and I, we started in '87 when he came, and I got him into the construction business. We started buying project and rehabbing, selling, and buying together. And yes, last night, as a matter of fact, I was asked the question, how often do you fight with your brother? You've been doing business. We don't fight. And the mentality when we started, we sat down, we said, look, there are going to be some screw up, whether from my part or your part. We may lose some money here and there because of bad decision you made or I made. And we're going to make a lot of money probably because of the decision you made or I made. As long as you don't say you did it or I did it and point the finger, and we eat it together and we appreciate it. And, you know, if we win together. That's best policy. And knock on wood, 87 till now, how many years now? And we never had an argument when it comes to business.
Wow.
And we had losses, we had gains, whatever, but we always turn around and say, okay, let's move on to the next deal. We made a decision and we made it collectively, and it worked very well or it didn't work well. And that's my policy. So when it came to building the house here in Malibu, a lot of my friends said, don't let your brother build it. You're going to end up having issues. I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to let him build it. There's no one I trust more than my brother. So I remember taking the checkbook, signing all the checks. I give it to him. And 3 years later, the house was finished. We never had an argument. Were there some issues with the house that weren't to my liking? Absolutely. Guess what? nobody who would have built it for me. There would have been other issues, right?
Yeah.
So that's realistic. So you have to be open-minded and know what's more important in life than, the dollar sign or, value of family. It's far more important than money.
I respect that a lot. I think that's a great stance to take, because I'd love to do something similar to what you have, like with my cousins and things like that. And we've been talking about potentially starting a couple different businesses and whatnot. And like you said, we see it in our business where you see family at each other's throats, unfortunately, in different lawsuits and things. It's unfortunate to see, and hearing the policy, the pact that you guys made in the beginning gives hope, because for a while
I'll warn you, Chandler, though. There is a lot of difficulties also running a business with the family, especially on the second generation that's coming up, because the second generation do not have the same value of the first generation who have created all this.
Yeah, they didn't get their hands
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they feel they're entitled. And I mean, you're not train them. There is jealousy among, whether it's cousins, whatever. You have to really maneuver it. And I don't know how successful is going to be the transition ultimately. But like they say, you cannot
take it with you when you go.
No, you cannot govern from the grave.
Yeah.
So look, Paul and I will do our best in what we have created, what we have done, and we'll teach our kids what they need to do. And ultimately, it's up to them which direction they're going to go. But so, yes, family is great, but operating business with family, it's never that easy. It's far more complex than being with a stranger, because the stranger, you can't cut the relationship and you're done. You don't have to see them for bat mitzvah. You don't have to see them for baptism. You don't have to see them for wedding engagement. Yeah, family, you still have to see them. So that makes it more difficult.
Yeah. That, I mean, I guess you can tell me in 20 years, where things go.
If I'm still around, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, you live like an incredible lifestyle. Like, I feel like you got a lot of life to live.
I hope so. I want to be here for another 40 years at least.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
You live your life. I mean, you go on hikes. The hikes that you do, like behind your house when we would come. My gosh, I'm sitting here. I kid you not. Like, I'm dying on these hikes, 5 mile, 8 mile hikes. I'm like, what? And you're not. You're older than me. Obviously, you lived more life than me, but my knees are hurting probably more than yours. Yeah.
Look, it's back though to what we said, what makes you successful in business. I'm very rigid with my schedule.
Yeah, definitely.
So for the last now 32, 33 years, I get up at 4 during the week. 4:30, I'm out of the door. 5 o'clock, I'm at the gym. I have a team of guys and girls I meet with, which they vary. It depends who shows up, who doesn't show up, to run, then come back, work out. And so we all hold each other, accountable to being there. That's one. But it's a discipline. And the night, if I go out and you have an extra drink and in the morning you don't want to get up, I force myself to do it, because the whole day I'm going to be upset with myself for not showing up to the gym and disappointing the other party. So that's one. So discipline is very important in success. Use your schedule carefully. So people say, well, I don't have the time to work out, or I don't have the time to do certain things. It's not true. We all have the same hour throughout the day, the same minute. So God doesn't give me more hours than you do, but it's how we use our time. Whether you are the president of the US and whether you're shoe shine guy, we all have the same time. How you allocate your time and how you use it effectively. So to me, getting up that early in the morning, it gives me the time. Even when the kids were little, they're sleeping. So I go, I work out, I get my day started, and where everybody's still, sleeping middle of the night for them. And I gain that. So from health reason, from me, being in shape, that helped me. And I start my day. So if I left it throughout, like after work, I will never be able to work out, because you want to come home, you want to be with your kids. And then you say, no, I have to be with my kids. I'm not going to work out. So scheduling things on my calendar, and I have it that way. I have my gym, I have my yoga lessons, I have my meetings. Everything is on my calendar.
Yeah, trust
If
me, I
it's
know.
not on the calendar,
It's
it
not
doesn't
happening.
exist.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to the next question that I had, and you'd mentioned how, now you're in maybe not so much a transitionary period, but with your relationship and life now, traveling, you're doing different things with your life than just business, right? How does that transition and how does this new kind of, I guess, look at life work for you, and as someone who had such a strict schedule and such a regimen, and you've been so kind of focused?
And this is part of scheduling, by the way. I'm glad you asked this question. Or people say, we don't have time to go on vacation. We all have time to do what we need to do.
Mm.
So, yes, I go on more vacations now than I used to. But from the beginning, I think, so what I do at the end of the year, I take my calendar and I schedule my vacations throughout the year.
Mm.
I have the date I'm going to be leaving. I buy the tickets. I make my reservation. So everything is preset. So your schedule is done for the whole year from December. So the only schedule that changed with me is the dinners, who you're going to be having lunch with. These are the schedule that changes. But the major stuff are done, are set in stone in December, and that's what we're doing this year. It makes it easier.
No, I mean, it's funny. Before I was working with you, I probably would have heard that and said, "Oh, that sounds like a nightmare. You're so boxed in." But first off, seeing how busy life gets, and when you don't schedule things, just something else comes up, something,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then seeing the way that you live your life, it's really refreshing to see that, to be honest with you. It's something that I really took from you. Like, out of the things that I look up to you for, that's one thing that I was like, scheduling not only work and important business things, but also time to take care of yourself, time for family, all these different things.
No,
It's really
absolutely.
important.
It's a must. And literally, we all have the time to do everything that we need to do.
Mm,
It's just how you schedule your time and how you work with your time.
mm,
That's all.
mm. So, kind of as we wrap up here, there's one thing I did want to say. I used to drive because I went to Pepperdine, right? And thankfully, it wasn't easy, whatever. But I was very grateful to have gone to Pepperdine. And I used to drive down PCH because I ended up living with some of my buddies at a house down the way. And I kid you not, I used to drive down. I used to look up at your house from PCH. I promise you this. And I was like, wow, that place is amazing. Like, I'd love to like live there. In my head, I just envisioned it. I kid you not. I was like, I'd love to live there. I was like, I wonder who lives there. And then 4 or 5 years
Here I
later,
am.
here you are. I'm literally sitting in the same house, come to the team parties, this and that. So, first I want to say thank you for the opportunity working with you, because I learned a lot. It was a life-changing experience, generationally changed lives working with you, and the knowledge that I gained and the things that I'll be able to implement in my life. So I really appreciate that opportunity.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you for the compliment on the house. That was literally a dream for me. I remember in 1980 when I came to California, I drove down PCH. I said, you know what? This is where I want to live one day. It reminded me so much of home where I grew up. And in 88, I started looking. Then I changed my mind because you're removed. Malibu still remote to a certain extent, being single guy
Mm.
living out here. And then 96, I was 36 years old, bought the lot, and I started working on it.
Mm.
But thank you. I mean, it wasn't easy, building it at that time,
I
knowing
can
City of
imagine.
Malibu, but we're here now.
Mm.
But thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So is there anything else going forward that you want to gear up? Like, let's say, some of your clients would watch this, or people that, may potentially think about working with you, or anything like that. Is there anything that you want to touch on gearing up for the future? Maybe talk about some of the business you're doing, some of the deals you're doing.
Well, I mean, my advice to any real estate agent who gets into the business: no, it's not forever career, because you're going to get to a point you're not going to be able to broker anymore. Be smart with your money, invest, believe in the product you sell, and buy in that product you sell.
Mm.
and become an owner. Real estate is one of the most amazing vehicle I think that works, because I believe now in I want something that works for me 24/7, whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm sick, whatever it is, I'm sleeping. I want something that works for me, and real estate is the answer, 24/7. So that's one. Number two, from an investment point of view, I think there's great opportunity coming up. Probably, yes, we are. Definitely, I think we're going to go through a small recession now. I don't know if it's going to be hard landing or soft landing. Most likely, it will be a little soft landing. I don't think it's going to be that, but there will be opportunity. There is always opportunity for our client to buy and for me to buy and to keep building the portfolio. And just that's about it, you know.
Before we close, just last question, just because what makes you think it'll be a soft landing if we end up going into a small recession?
You know, the fundamental of real estate have changed in the market that we are in Southern California, especially. There is no land, and yes, in the Midwest, probably you're gonna have more of up and down, or Texas, whatever. Uh, LA, any building you see being built, they had to demolish something else to build a new building. So you know there's no land fundamentally, right? When you have that, you know it's a very tight market. Even if there is a change, it's going to be a minor change, and it's going to come back. And historically now, from 1985, since I get involved in the real estate till now, we had probably 4 different cycles. And every time after the cycle, I have seen the real estate become more expensive than prior. So it has proven to me that real estate is the way, the vehicle to make money and generational, you know, generate cash flow. So I strongly believe in the product I sell.
I love that. Okay. Well, let's, I know you're a busy man. You're getting blown up on the phone. Thank you for setting the time out to do this. I appreciate it. I think that, you know, people that are not only in the business, you know, they can learn a little bit more about you, about some of the business practices that you take into your own daily life. And then people that maybe are looking to get into business or own real estate, I think we'll take a lot from it. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chandler, for the opportunity. Sorry it took forever for us to get together.
No, don't worry about it. We made it happen.
But we're here. I'm glad we were able to do these sessions, and wish you all the best. And thank you.
My pleasure. That's it.
That's it. All right, man.